Let's applaud SpaceX for the rocket journey they've covered thus far. The latest Falcon Heavy performance speaks volumes about SpaceX's competence to reach the moon in a few months. Thus, SpaceX is now ready to show the world how technology can be engineered to function beyond human imagination. We are talking about the kind of technology performance we've seen in sci-fi movies and not CG video editing. The Starship launch will happen before our eyes, and it will be the most unbelievable moment we will ever witness in the history of mankind. Let's discuss how long SpaceX needs to lift the Starship's buttocks from the launch mount and send it above the Earth's atmosphere into space. Elon Musk has already tweeted that SpaceX will launch 5 fully stocked Super Heavy Starships into the Earth's orbit this year, 2023. He again added that the Super Heavy rocket will fly weekly by the fourth quarter of 2023. The company's to-do list is to refill the Starship's tanks with liquid oxygen and liquid methane propellant and inject it into the vehicle's Super Heavy first stage and Starship's upper stage, which SpaceX has already stacked together to form a tower-like rocket that will be propelled into orbit as it stands vertically on the launch mount. On January 23rd, the Starship was loaded with 4.6 million kilograms of propellant at launch facilities where it was still seated on the launch mount. And it also went ahead to conduct a well-dressed rehearsal at the Starbase facility in South Texas. Starship completed its first full flight-like wet dress rehearsal at Starbase today, SpaceX said. SpaceX confirms that this is the first time an integrated ship and booster were fully loaded with more than 10 million pounds of propellant. According to the company's statement, today's test will help verify a full launch countdown sequence, as well as the performance of Starship and the orbital pad for flight-like operations. The Starship's wet dress rehearsal test will be a step ahead, allowing the company to see how much progress they are making with the Starship project. The test also helped ensure that the rocket could be safely fueled and that there were no leaks. It's a very important step for the company before it can carry out an orbital test flight and begin operations to prevent explosion. The Starship is the most powerful vehicle ever developed, and it is expected to produce about 3,991 metric tons of thrust, 15 times more than NASA's Apollo moon rocket, Saturn V. NASA has already contracted with SpaceX to develop the Starship human landing system, which will help astronauts land on the moon under the U.S. Space Agency's Artemis program. But Mr. Musk has ultimate ambition to make life multiplanetary by sending 1 million people to Mars by 2050, using several prototypes or fleets of the Starship. Again, we applaud the company that Monday's wet dress rehearsal was successful, and that prepares the Starship vehicle for a future launch, which we hope will come to pass in 2023. So we are certain that the vessel's Ship 24 upper stage, stacked on the Booster 7 variant, is now safe to travel to space. Ship 24 will make one orbit around the planet as part of the first Starship spaceflight, with a planned splashdown in the Pacific Ocean not far from Hawaii. However, SpaceX still needs to check off a few prerequisites for that to happen. For instance, the company will destack Starship to simultaneously test fire all 33 Raptor engines on Booster 7. The most powerful static fire trial that SpaceX has performed with the vehicle involved just 14 of its Raptors. So the next in line is the fully static fire test with 33 Raptor 2 engines. SpaceX is also counting on Starship to launch the bulk of its big next-generation Starlink 2.0 internet satellites and carry out almost all of the company's spaceflight duties at some point down the road. Although the future of Starship spaceflight will be full of exciting adventures and overwhelmed with multiple duties for many companies, as well as many nations, who knows, perhaps the vast majority of the technological progress that would benefit the whole world could be made feasible by the development of satellites or other advanced communication networks. And, of course, SpaceX Starship prototype and the Falcon Heavy may be the most dependable carriers for transporting these satellites into orbit and touring space to do research that will be of use to humanity as a whole. The vehicle has been on the ground, undergoing several upgrades for over 2 years. The most recent Starship test flight occurred in May 2021. It sent a 3-engine upper stage prototype called the SN-15 about 6.2 miles, or 10 kilometers into the skies above Starbase. It was not the first time an upper stage Starship prototype had made a journey like this, but SN-15 was the first to touch down successfully. The Starship is expected to be refueled while floating in space. There will be tail-to-tail contact between two starships, where one will be the cargo starship carrying the propellant. This kind of starship is only designed to carry propellant, or you can call it a Starship propellant tanker, which is expected to just be floating between Earth and space or the Moon to refill other starships on duty. The ability of the propellant to refuel other starships in space means it could carry a huge amount of mass around the solar system. It could be a 100-ton object moving in space, and it will not always land since it will be refilling many starships until its tank is empty. Then it will go back to Starbase, refill, and head on to continue its duties. Now we can vividly remember when SpaceX's CEO, Elon Musk, said in a public meeting of the National Academies in November 2021 that the Starship has a 5 times higher performance than the best SLS can offer, even in its final configuration with a kick stage. But unfortunately, that means we have yet to see all the features the ship offers, and perhaps in the future, SpaceX will continue upgrading the ship, adding many features to make it more smart, sleek, and sophisticated. Starship is also forecast to be cheaper, although whether it can hit Musk's optimistic projection of less than $10 million per launch remains to be seen if they get anywhere near that cost. But to be sincere, many percentages of the middle class will not be able to afford a trip inside the Starship and travel to space because of cost. So our best bet for many of the Starship trips is for NASA, SpaceX astronauts, or top billionaires that have an interest in experiencing what it feels like to be in space. Anyway, even though the Starship is not up and running, many people are already rushing to buy tickets. Mr. Musk has already sold flight tickets on the Starship, including to American billionaire Jared Isaacman, who bought a place on the first crewed orbital flight. As part of the Dear Moon program, Japanese millionaire Yasuko Maezawa will travel to the Moon on a crewed airplane and bring 8 artists along with him. A static test fire is the next step the business must take to prove that the rocket is ready for flight. This test is performed on the ground and involves lighting the rocket's engines. But as long as SpaceX keeps facing the FAA's nightmare, it has a lot to do with satisfying the agreed launch regulation. Yet the company has not received a launch license from U.S. authorities to carry out an orbital test flight. SpaceX will need about 75 measures to safeguard the environment for the Starship to launch into orbit from Boca Chica. Unfortunately, SpaceX and the FAA haven't said how these mitigations are coming along or what's cooking with the Starship launch license. But in a statement to Space News on January 12th, the FAA said that not all steps need to be taken before the launch license will be issued. The agency said that, for instance, some steps must be taken before launch, while others are needed after launch. Though the FAA is not sleeping on its task, so SpaceX has no option but to comply with whatever professional mitigation is demanded to protect Boca Chica's environment or that of the United States. However, March looks ripe for the Starship to finally fly in lower Earth's orbit. Not only is SpaceX family hoping to see the Starship fly, but NASA is also looking forward to its historic flight. The world has never seen a vehicle like the Starship before. If successful, the massive spacecraft would open up new possibilities for the space industry. Do you think the Starship will make its fully stacked orbital test flight by March? To complement your opinion, take a look into how SpaceX has upgraded its new Stage 0 that will change everything. Just click on it.